Hey, Happy New Year, everybody. This is your Brand Redacted coming to you from an undisclosed location. And tonight I'm going to give you my thoughts on WWE Day 1, their first big event of the year. So let's get right to it. We've got a few things to go over, some surprises, some good ones, not so good ones, and a little bit in between. So there we go. First off, the big news before the event, it was announced that Roman Reigns was diagnosed with COVID-19, and we all wish him a speedy recovery. Hopefully, everything goes well. You never know with the cancer treatments he received when he was out with leukemia, if he had a compromised immune system. Hopefully he has no ill effects from that. And just hope he gets back quick with no lasting effects. Because you don't want that on anyone, whether you like him as a wrestler or not. Definitely don't want that to happen. And, he's the best heel on the roster right now, too. So, sure Vince wants him back, obviously. But then, the WWE did a pretty good job of kind of shaking things up in the main event because, hell, you had Brock in town and you got to pay him regardless, so you might as well stick him out there somewhere. And so the Fatal 4-Way for the WWE Championship now became a Fatal 5-Way, with obviously Big E defending the title against Seth Rollins, Kevin Owens, Bobby Lashley. And then they add old Brock Lesnar to the mix, make it a Fatal 5-Way. And that match obviously was fun to watch, and we'll get to that in a minute. But first, let's run it down. Not going to worry about the pre-show, because the only thing happened on that is that dude got his nose broken. But I will say it's one thing about the pre-show. Is, in my opinion, Cesaro is probably the biggest waste of a talent, maybe in WWE history. I mean, honestly. How you could miss with a guy like Cesaro, who's a dude you can build your company around for a decade. So, it is a shame to see him on the pre-show, and also Sheamus as well. And, of course, Ricochet, too. And I don't even know who the hell that guy was with him. I can't remember his name. So, obviously, it wasn't that important. But, so we won't go through that. Sheamus wins, yada, yada. But let's get to the actual show. We kicked it off with the Usos and the New Day for the SmackDown Tag Team titles. And I believe this is their 337th meeting. Not that that's a real bad thing, because they got great chemistry and always have great matches. And this one didn't fail, and the crowd was pretty hot for it all night. So this was a good way to kick off the show. Some high enthusiasm. And the New Day, I swear, whether they're the trio with Big E or is just Woods and Kofi, they can ham it up like nobody else and make that goofy shit kind of funny. I like that. And it's like I said, great back and forth match. Showed the great athleticism, the great chemistry. These guys could probably wrestle each other blindfolded at this point. And it was a great match with good false finishes at the end. It's a little bit of, I don't know, maybe too many false finishes for some people. I thought they were okay. It was booked well, paced well, and everything. Had a few like Jimmy Uso using the Tequila Sunrise. I haven't seen that in a while. That's always a cool move to see. And of course, the Usos win with a 3D. That was surprising. A little 3D action, a little nod to the Dudley boys. Of course, I wonder if that'll bring the Dudleys in to kind of feud with them. Probably not, but you never know. Kind of hope not, because I'm kind of over the Dudleys anyway. And then after that match, they had an interview with Migos. I don't even know who the hell these guys are. I've never heard of them. I don't know. I thought they were going to perform tonight. Thank God they didn't, because I don't know. To me, I don't know. I don't know who they are. I've never heard of them. I don't listen to rap. I haven't listened to rap music since Tupac and Biggie died, because that's when rap died and quote-unquote hip-hop began, and I don't like hip-hop. It's garbage. So real rap died with Tupac and Biggie. You heard it here. And after that, of course, we had the one of the biggest current wastes of talent, Drew McIntyre, against this guy Madcap Moss with Happy Corbin. And Madcap, Gas Cap, Hub Cap, Bottle Cap, who cares? This guy sucks. I mean, this guy comes out dressed like a jackass that a girl would bring home to their parents just to piss them off. And then they're in the ring with their lame-ass jokes, and they're getting these boos, and they think they're getting the good heel heat. No, they're getting heat, the kind of heat that says, go away, nobody likes you. It's not the kind of heat you want. And of course, this match was way longer than it took. It took way longer than it should have. This should have been a 30-second squash match. McIntyre has been completely misused since coming to SmackDown. I don't know how you can mess up a guy like Drew McIntyre. Just look at the guy. But maybe with events that happened this evening, McIntyre can get back into a little bit more of a prominent position. But after the match, a little later on, McIntyre is being interviewed and gets jumped, and of course that means the feud's going to continue between Corbin and Moss and McIntyre, which is just stupid, because I figure at least Corbin, he should have been fired like 5 years ago, but he must have some seriously compromising pictures of some heavy hitters in the WWE or something to keep his job, because the guy's got very little talent whatsoever. And I figure him and Moss, one or the other or both, will be one of the first people let go in the post-WrestleMania purge, and let's hope it's Corbin. I don't really care for Moss either way. But yeah, I said that match should not have taken nearly as long as it did. McIntyre should not have had any trouble with this guy. I understand, trying to get the young guy over and everything, but not at the expense of a guy like Drew McIntyre. No, and Moss and Corbin, they came out look like a bunch of schmucks, and they're talking their lame comedy routines that somebody wrote for them. Those two should be the opening match of an episode of AEW Dark Elevation. Let's just be honest here. Neither one of them have any kind of charisma or anything that would lead you to believe that they have a future in wrestling in general, especially the WWE. So, Drew wins with the Claymore. It's good he won. Match took too long. Wasting McIntyre. He needs to do something bigger with a bigger talent. Someone on his level. You're not elevating Moss to his level. You're dragging McIntyre down to their level. So, totally disagree with how he's been used lately. But I don't book the show, obviously. So, whatever. And then you had another tag team match. The Raw Tag Team Championships. The RK Bro versus the Street Profits. And first thing I noticed about this one is something that we've pretty much, any wrestling fan has seen for the last few years. Orton could really care less about what goes on as long as his check clears every week. Let's just be honest here. And he didn't care about those Migo people coming down with him. He didn't care about that either. He probably didn't know who the hell they were either, because I don't think anybody knows who these guys are. If you people know who they are, just kind of hit me in the comment section of who they are, what they sing, because literally they don't look like they have a whole lot of talent to me. But that's just my opinion. And of course, the match was okay. Not a big fan of Riddle. I've never really been a big fan of Riddle. I think he's just kind of a douchebag. I've never really cared for Riddle. The whole barefoot in the ring bothers me probably more than it should. It bothers me more than how so many wrestlers are wearing tennis shoes and sneakers and Jordans and Air Force Ones and whatever the hell else shoes they have that cost $800 that they're wrestling in. Just looks weird. But on this other side, man, the Street Profits are athletic as all hell, man. They can really move in the ring. They could have one hell of a feud. A cross-brand feud with the Usos. That would be a hell of a match. They've got some serious potential and some talent. Obviously, they've been champions, been around long enough. But RK Bro wins with a fairly cool double team RKO. I'll give them that. They do have chemistry together. I don't care much for Riddle, and Orton doesn't care much for anything. Let's be honest here. So that was alright. And so the next match is Edge versus The Miz, and this is one match that I have a bit of an opinion on. More of an opinion than the other matches. And first of all, I like Miz. I respect The Miz. He's a damn good heel. He's a smarmy little slimy prick. He's really good at being a heel and really good at getting hated. But that being said, as much as I like and respect The Miz and think he's a great heel, I don't understand why the WWE would use the limited number of matches Edge has left in his body on a feud with The Miz. And of course, as this match unfolded, you saw what's probably going to be set up for WrestleMania in some way, which I thought was actually going to happen. I just didn't think it was going to happen this soon. Everybody knew what was going to happen once Maurice got involved. And of course, every time I see Maurice now, all I can see is, it's funny as how I told my wife this, all I can see when I look at Maurice is the way she rolls her eyes when she eats truffles. And anyone who's seen the Miz and Mrs., you know what I'm talking about. Just the way she can roll her eyes is just weird. That's all I see when I see her now. But the way I figured this match was going to end, obviously, it was going to be some shenanigans. Miz was going to win, thanks to Maurice's interference, which would eventually lead into Beth Phoenix's involvement. As like I told my wife, what I think is going to happen is, Miz will win tonight because of interference, and then there'll be something going on at the Royal Rumble. I figured Maurice and Beth Phoenix would both enter the Royal Rumble and then come to blows in that match, and that would bleed over into the feud with Edge and Miz. But pardon me, they pulled a little swerve on us, a little curveball. Not bad, because I guarantee you I'm not the only one who thought this is what was going to happen eventually. I didn't think they were going to pull the trigger on it so quick. But the way I described it, a lot of people probably thought that's how it was going to happen. But no. It looked like it was set up to do that, but Edge kicked out, and then all of a sudden you see a bunch of people on the stand standing up, and I didn't hear any music, but I'm like, oh, Beth's coming. And she stood there with a wild hairdo, but it kind of fit the glamazon look, and she looked pretty menacing and pretty pissed. I mean, she has an intimidating look on her. Beth Phoenix has always been an intimidating type of figure. She just has a really, really mean face. Sometimes. I mean, she looks like a nice person, but when she's in that glamazon wrestling mode, she can turn it on really well. And of course, she scared Maurice away and stared down the Miz, distracted him enough for Edge to hit the spear. Bickety bam, Edge wins. And of course, this feud isn't over. It's gonna, it'll probably still slow burn a little bit. There will be shenanigans at the Rumble. Some people are going to get eliminated due to outside interference, cost them this and that, and then eventually, I think WrestleMania, we're getting the mixed tag match with Edge and Beth versus Miz and Maurice. I'll watch it. It'll be a good match. Maurice, I don't know what... She was good when she was wrestling regularly. She's pretty good, and Beth Phoenix is Beth Phoenix. So I think they'll put on a good show at Mania, but like I said, we'll get there in time. And next is the Liv Morgan versus Becky Lynch 2. And I preface 2 because I think this is going to end up being a trilogy of sorts, and I'll tell you what I mean in a minute. My opinion on it. Like I said, I could be wrong because I was completely wrong about the setup of the next match, but like I said, just my opinion on the years I've spent watching wrestling and the booking I've done in certain things. But the way I figured, Liv was going to once again fight valiantly and hard. I figured her arm injury would come into play more than it did, because Becky has her disarm her submission. So I figured like I said, I'm going to tell my wife, here's what I think is going to happen. Liv's going to come also close to winning. Becky's going to work on the arm again, and she's going to put her in the disarmor, and Liv's going to do everything she can to fight out of it and get to the ropes and eventually she's going to have to tap out. And then Liv will go on to win the Rumble, the Women's Rumble, challenge Becky Lynch one more time at WrestleMania, and then get her win. And even though Becky won relatively cleanly, although I'm wondering if Becky screwed up the finish or not. Because when she slammed Liv down and she went to pin her, it looked like she was trying to reach her legs back to touch the ropes, and that was acknowledged, obviously, by the announce team. Now, I'm wondering if that was trying to cover up Becky or Liv, one or the other, or both screwing up their placement in the ring, and it was supposed to be a tainted finish. That's possible. I don't know. I wasn't there. Maybe some word will come out later on that was kind of a botched finish. But it looked like Becky was trying her damnedest to get her foot on a rope there at the end of that count. So, my guess is right now is they kind of botched the finish a little bit, because it was a clean finish. So, I mean, still, you could do the match again, because Liv did put up a good fight, and if she wins the Royal Rumble, she has her choice to pick to the fight anyway. But I think maybe there was a little bit of a mess up on the finish, and Becky was a little too far away after she slammed her. That was one hell of a slam, by the way. So I think Becky, or I think the positioning was wrong. I'm not going to say it was Becky or Liv's fault or anything. I think it was just, one of those things that happened. And it's not that difficult to really kind of rectify the situation. It's not damning to the feud. With the Royal Rumble coming up, you can basically rewrite the history however you want it. And I do think that Liv is probably going to enter the Rumble at number 1 or very early after that and survive all the women and win the Rumble, go on to face Becky one more time. And this will probably be billed as the last time you're ever going to get a shot at me, Becky. Like, this is the last time you're getting a shot at me. And Liv will pull out the victory. That's what I think is probably going to happen. So, good match. Liv's getting better. Becky is Becky. I think Liv has got a good future. I think that... I don't think there's a woman on the roster, and I could be wrong about this, but in my opinion, I don't think there's a woman on the roster that can connect with an audience as natural as Liv Morgan can. And that's a very good thing if it's acknowledged. Sometimes this creative team won't acknowledge it, but who knows? It's going to be good to watch. It's going to be good to see Liv Morgan continue her climb to the top, and eventually, if she gets the win at WrestleMania, which I think she will, it'll be that much more special. So, any people who want Liv to win but aren't happy about it, I say be patient. Liv's going to get her win. There's no way in hell, well, I would say there's no way in hell, that they can have this kind of build up and push Liv the way they are and not have a payoff with her winning a title. But this is WWE we're talking about, so Vince McMahon could change his mind right away. And then we come to the main event with the Fatal 5-Way. And I knew this match was going to be crazy and bedlam when it started. I mean, it was going to be a crazy match with just 4 of them. Then you add Klondike Lesnar into the mix and Lumberjack Brock in there. You know it's going to be crazy. And of course, the match starts off with Lesnar doing his suplexes and everything. And then, of course, I figured they'd all jump on Lesnar because he's the most dangerous man in the match. Technically, I guess there's a couple other dangerous dudes like Bobby Lashley, who proved it with that spear, with a spear Lesnar right through the barricade, which I found it kind of funny that some people, they showed people in the crowd, they were amazed like it was the greatest thing they'd ever seen. And I'm like, dude, how many times did Goldberg do that to Brock Lesnar alone, let alone other people doing it to other people? But I knew, obviously we knew that Lashley and Lesnar were going to come to blows. That's what a lot of people were waiting to see. And I kind of thought it would happen a little later in the match, where they would both be in the ring, they'd clean house and get everybody out, and then they'd have themselves a stare down for a few minutes, and then eventually they would, just have a slugfest, one person would win, and then someone would interfere. 'Cause I actually thought for sure that Big E was going to take the title, or keep the title in this one, but he didn't. Brock Lesnar ended up winning the WWE Championship. And then that just begs the question, brings up a few questions for me. It's like, one, obviously this was an impromptu decision made by Vince McMahon today, because they found out like a couple hours before the show about Reigns' COVID diagnosis. So he made the decision. Fine, I don't mind the decision to put the belt on Lesnar, but having him pin Big E, I mean, that makes it more emphatic that he actually pinned the champion in the match, but basically you kind of buried Big E a bit. Now, Big E's good enough to pull himself out of this hole, but really, he could have pinned, it wouldn't have hurt. The only other person he could have pinned in that match that it would have hurt would have been Bobby Lashley. He could have pinned Kevin Owens or Seth Rollins, and it would not have been as... It wouldn't have hurt Owens or Rollins that much. Because you could have done a little thing where Rollins and Owens, they start, fighting, and then Lesnar sneaks in, hits a German on one, F5 on the other, and gets a quick pin off of the distraction of the two guys who had the alliance start fighting, which is inevitable in any one of these multi-man matches. It happens. So, like I said, I don't mind Brock Lesnar taking the title because, let's face it, he's, like Brock Lesnar or not, he's over as hell. And this new fun-loving lumberjack Brock Lesnar with the messed up ponytail and everything. Brock looks like he's having fun when he's out there, and when Brock looks like he's having fun, it just makes it that much more enjoyable to watch. Because you can tell when Brock doesn't want to be there and he's just standing there to get his paycheck. But now he's actually kind of enjoying himself a little bit. For whatever reason, since he returned at SummerSlam, he's been acting like he actually is enjoying the show, which is making it more enjoyable for the audience, obviously. It's simple as that. If you look like you're having fun, the audience is going to have fun. Yeah, simple as that. But then that begs the question on what's going to happen going forward, because the way I thought was going to happen, here's what I thought was going to happen with this whole situation if it went down the way it was going to go down before Roman had to go on with COVID. I thought that Roman was going to win with shenanigans of some sort. Again, he wasn't going to win clean. It was going to be Heyman, some kind of screw up, a screwy finish, obviously, and Reigns was going to retain. And then Lesnar or Drew McIntyre, because I thought Drew McIntyre would probably join in on this, because, I mean, McIntyre can't feud with these morons, these curtain-jerking schlubs all for a while. It's Royal Rumble time, and he deserves to be in a main event spot. And if it's not going to be Lesnar wrestling Reigns, it's got to be McIntyre, which it still could be, and hopefully it will be. They have a few months to bring this up. But what I thought was going to happen is that, like I said, Reigns was going to keep the title tonight, and then something's going to happen at the Rumble. Maybe there was going to be some kind of finish, a disputed finish in the Rumble between McIntyre and Lesnar. Maybe they did a rehash of the 94 Rumble where they both go over the top rope at the same time, co-winners, and they end up both deciding to go after Roman Reigns or whatever. Or they were going to do Reigns, Lesnar again. They're going to run it back one more time at Mania. That could have happened too. But I kind of thought that McIntyre was going to be involved in there. Either it's going to be a triple threat or something was going to happen. Maybe McIntyre would go to Raw or something. I think McIntyre was going to be involved in a title match. I don't know what kind, but we would see. But now what I think is going to happen, which really this change of plans could be a blessing in disguise, because now you have world title Brock Lesnar with the WWE Championship, and the way he stared down Lashley at the end, I can almost guarantee you Bobby Lashley is going to steamroll through the Royal Rumble now, win it, and then challenge Lesnar. And you're going to finally get the one-on-one match between Bobby Lashley and Brock Lesnar that people have been wanting for the last however so many years since Lashley came back. People have been wanting to see it, and I'm pretty sure it was in Lashley's contract that he gets a match with Lesnar, and that would be a hell of an attraction. And I would still leave Roman Reigns without an opponent for WrestleMania. Now, first there was talk of The Rock coming back and wrestling him. I don't know if that's going to happen. They had that plan in place. They also had a plan where if the studios wouldn't allow The Rock to actually wrestle that much, if at all, they could do like a tag team match with The Rock and an Uso versus Roman and an Uso. But I'm not 100% sure The Rock's going to do that. And I'm almost going to guarantee that the movie studios are not going to allow The Rock to really get all that physical at all, because, you know, so the last time he wrestled at WrestleMania in an actual match was that second match with Cena, and he injured himself so bad that they had to delay the filming of Conan like 6 months. And the studios they're not too keen on having to lose out on money like that. So if he's got movies and TV projects lined up, which it seems like he does, I seriously doubt they're going to let him wrestle. So that'll be a good way for McIntyre to get away from these two clown schlubs and go on to a feud with Roman Reigns, which will lead to one hell of a match at WrestleMania. So maybe you don't want Roman to get COVID, because you don't want anyone to get COVID, for crying out loud. But that could be a blessing in disguise, and it was a decently booked show. It was a good show overall. I give it, if I had to give it out of 5 stars, I'd give it a 3.5 out of 5 stars. Couple of booking decisions I didn't like. The Miz, like I said, I like The Miz, but I think he's kind of wasting Edge's matches that he'd have with people he hasn't wrestled before. McIntyre dealing with these curtain-jerking morons. all that stuff. The Liv and Becky match, maybe it was a mistake, maybe it wasn't. But I'll give it a solid 3.5 out of 5. It was a good start for a show that they've never had before. There was no real buzz in terms of history with the show. They did a pretty good job with it. So I don't mind it. And we'll see what happens with the booking. I think with the Lesnar getting the WWE title he could very easily have a champion versus champion match at WrestleMania with Roman Reigns. That could happen. But I think the best decision now that they've done it, is him and Lashley for the WWE Championship, and Roman Reigns against someone, ideally Drew McIntyre, because there's really no one else on SmackDown worthy of it, is there? I mean, not really. I mean, SmackDown was basically, since SummerSlam, has been built around Lesnar, Reigns, and Paul Heyman, so... And I'm sure Reigns will be back sooner rather than later, but now maybe get another opponent in there to do something. And just go forward with Brock Lesnar versus Bobby Lashley, which is probably the match that more people want to see. Because even though we haven't seen full face Rock against full heel Reigns before, we have seen the Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar a lot. So let's give us something we haven't seen before. So hopefully they book that. But that's basically my thoughts on WWE Day 1. I thought it was a pretty good show. It was a good lead-in show. And in about, 4 weeks, 28 days, we've got the Royal Rumble, which is always a great pay-per-view. One of my favorite pay-per-views. You always get some surprise entries in the Royal Rumble, some surprise winners. I mean, every now and then you can predict who the winner is, but at the same time, they throw you a curveball every once in a while, and that's what makes the Royal Rumble so damn fun, and usually the best pay-per-view of the year, in my opinion. But I appreciate you all watching, and I would also appreciate if you liked the video to hit that like button and subscribe for that way you'll catch future content. I'm going to be releasing a lot more videos on some various sports topics, not just pro wrestling, but there will be some good pro wrestling opinions and stuff in here, because that's a very good subject to really get a good conversation going. I mean, there's some toxicity in it, but hell, there's toxicity in everything, right? But once again, I appreciate you all watching, and I'll hit you back pretty soon with another video from another undisclosed location. But until then, have a good night, and take care.